The Roots of Success podcast is for the landscape professional who's looking to up their game. We're not talking lawns or grass here. We're talking about people, process, and profits. The things deep within the business that need focus to scale a successful company. From hiring the right people and managing your team to improving your operations and mastering your finances, we've got a brain trust of experts to help you nurture the roots of a successful business and grow to the next level. This is the Roots of Success.
Welcome to Roots of Success podcast. Tommy Cole here. I've got a special guest. His name is Michael Bosco. He's one of our executive coaches at McFarland Stanford. He brings a wealth of knowledge and a tiny bit of sarcasm along the way, which makes everyone laugh. Hey, Michael, how are you?
I'm doing great. Hey, Tom, it's great to be on with you.
So Michael Bosco, he's part of the McFarland Stanford team, but he's also got a very, very unique background, which is awesome. We've known Michael, back in the landscaping days for a number of years, really became good friends with Chris Pinchick working together. But you had a company called Soils Alive, and that's where we met you and used a lot of your services and became a pretty good trade partner while we did the landscape. What was that all about?
I got my degree in soil science, and I just really wanted to get into growing plants. I had always been in the pest control world. And so the thought of making things green and gorgeous and beautiful just was exciting to me, and doing it from a soil science perspective. I got that thing rolling within months of graduating from college. And, 15 years later, I sold it, but it was one hell of a run, and loved working with you guys. And
Yeah.
I had a lot of great clients, high end, all the clients that you guys took care of, that sort of high end residential client. Plus we did some big commercial projects, right?
What did you guys predominantly do?
We were an application company, right? So we did plant healthcare is what it was. So we would go in and sell a fertility program, usually start off with some good soil testing, looking at what's needed, nutrient balance issues. We really got after it from a soil science and a plant a real horticultural background perspective, and built a fertility program very specific to properties. And we had a lot of success. I think at the time when I sold, I had some around 1,800 location accounts in Dallas. And I think we were running 7 trucks full time doing lawn apps. But we did, insect, weed, disease. But 90% of what we did was come at it from a soil science plant healthcare perspective.
Well, I like about that is still the service industry, right? Whether it's landscape and irrigation and drainage and maintenance, it's the service industry, which is, I believe, one of the fascinating industries out there. But taking all those years right after college, I think you kind of knew it all and then sort of didn't know it all, right? Kind of like the things they didn't teach you in college.
Man,
What's one thing that stood out in all those years? You're like, man, that's one thing I really learned about that type of business or that service line that you had to maintain.
if it just came down to taking care and get of the plants and the landscaping and getting results, boy, life would have been just awesome, right? But you throw in client expectations, challenging people to work with, and especially when you're talking about people that decide to call us instead of calling, a Scotch or True Green. A lot of times they've tried that, they've done that, and now their expectation is they're going to pay twice as much for my service. They expect twice the results a lot of times. And so the people side of it, and not only for the people side from the client perspective, but the employee side of it, the team side of it, that was something that just took years of experience for me to understand that not everybody is wired the way I'm wired. That took a
Just
long
like
time
you.
to
Yeah.
understand. Yeah.
Managing people was something that you didn't learn in school or learn from home, or I'll take a night course or anything that it's probably just raw experience of screwing up a lot of things, right?
A lot of screw up. In fact, one of our core values at SafeHaven is celebrate failure. And it really goes to that point, right? Like you've got to fail. You have to make mistakes to learn. I'm the kind of guy that, you tell me that stove is hot, I've got to go over there and touch it myself to prove it, but once I
Same.
realized it was hot, like, okay, you're right. I won't do
Yeah.
that again. So that whole idea of celebrating failure and learning from your mistakes and teaching your teammates along with that so that that learning curve gets moved along a lot faster is huge. So that was a big one for me.
So moving out of Soils Alive, you took over the Safe Haven Pest Control Company that you had mentioned just a few minutes ago. Safe Haven's been around a long time, right? And I believe you took the reins over that. And now you're going from, plant healthcare to killing bugs, like kind of two opposite things.
Well, yeah, it's more like I got back to my roots, Tommy, really, because it was the family business.
Yeah.
So my
Yeah.
great uncle
Yeah.
started it actually back in 1955, and so my dad took over in the 70s, and so I grew up in a family business. Right, my parents ran it out of the house. Mom was answering the phone, dad would run routes, and in the summertime, I would jump in the truck from the time I was like, I don't know, 12, 13, 14, 15 years old. I was running a route with dad.
Yeah.
And so I got to see customer service from a very, very early age and addressing customers, taking care of them, following through, the billing side of it. I used to do the paperwork side of it. So I really did, literally grew up in the business. So small business is really just in my blood. And
Yeah.
then, so my parents were still pretty young when I graduated from college. And so I knew I needed to go do my own thing for a while because they weren't ready to hand over the reins. And so that was also my passion. I was able to go and start Souls Alive. And then I decided to sell it. And when I did, then I jumped back into the family business, which was Ridall Pest Control, and I rebranded it to Safe Haven. So
Okay.
yes, it's been around forever, but I did go through a rebranding just because Ridall Pest Control is kind of a 1950s, everything must die,
Slang
kind
term.
of a name.
Yeah. We're going to blow it all up with gasoline.
That's right. We went from Rid All to Safe Haven. So
Yeah.
that was a branding need right there, right?
Yes.
I love the business because it's very much what I'd done with Souls Alive, which was it's customer service, it's applications, it's a guy in a truck, it's running routes, it's a very, very, very similar business model. The pest control world is to kind of the lawn application, fertilization type world too, right? You've got one guy, one truck. They need to go out and produce so much money in a day, and I think that whole concept that I learned at an early age that time is money and you have to account for it, and there's only so many hours in a day, and if you don't produce X, you can't go back and get it tomorrow. That yesterday's gone, right? You had to make it yesterday. You need to get what you can every single day. And I think that helped me with my pricing model as I went into the world of lawn fertility and fertilization, because I kind of had all of that base to start with. Starting a business, I sold the business and then bought the parents' business. Family businesses and dynamics is so challenging, and we see this quite a bit in our world. And then I had a brother that came along in the business, and then that was stressful. And then he just, needed to leave. And then I actually went through a merger 4 years ago. We brought a couple of companies together. So if it can be done, I've done it. I think just in the whole world of buy, sell, merge. I've bought three small companies in the last 3 years. So I think that gives me a lot of perspective when we're working with our business owners in the peer group too, because of
Yeah.
all of that.
Paint us a picture what Safe Haven looks like. Technicians, crews. I'm sure you have a leadership team, but give us the background of that, and then we'll dive into a little bit of that.
Safe Haven today there's 25-ish team members. We run 15 technicians. We have 4 customer service representatives, and then we have an inside salesperson, an outside salesperson, and then we have our operations, our COO more or less that reports to me, and then we have a director of admin that she runs the customer service team, and then I'm considered president, and actually my partner is Robert is considered a CEO.
So tell me about this merger thing. What were some of the challenges in the merger? I think this is an interesting topic, in the fact that landscape companies, pest control companies, plant health companies sort of buy up someone smaller, right? Or someone in their niche market that's ready to sort of give it up or transition out, retire, whatever. But there's like some unique challenges, a little bit like culture challenge. Let's just say business practice challenge, like standard financial reporting challenges, right? If you look back and go, yeah, man, we learned a few key notes here that like if I move forward to the next transaction of purchasing something, I've got to do X. What is that?
There's so there's so many things there that this is a 5-hour podcast right here, right? Just in the whole world of partners and mergers and that world, or even just buying a company. But I would say for me, Robert and I were aligned. We we were really kind of sister companies in the sense that we ran the same software. Like, all right, check box number one, right? We
Wow.
every
Yeah.
there's not a peer group meeting that we go to that software isn't discussed, right? Because it becomes your end all be
100%.
all. Amazing how much it dictates your world. So software was the same. Okay, check box number one. We use the same termite baiting system. Check box number two because that's a big thing. We were literally just a couple miles from each other. So location, geographical location, we just merged and brought it under our roof into one house. Box number three. Robert and I both had very similar with the direction we were headed, where we wanted to go. Weren't looking to sell, looking to build something. You know, another box checked. So and our values are very very similar. The companies were amazingly similar in so many ways. Had pretty similar cultures. We got to know each team, and he came over and got to spend time with my team. I would go spend time with his team and just see the similarities there. And I tell you, I don't know how often it kind of works out, but literally, like we just like went, and it all
Yeah.
came
And that sort
easy.
of made sense.
Yeah, it did, and it's been great. So I think it was kind of unique, but every situation, every potential merger is just so different in so many ways that I think the experience of it and is helpful. But there's just so many things that need to be discussed along the way. If you're looking at merging or even buying another company, we bought a like a $400,000 company down in southwest of Fort Worth last year, and it was a fantastic, very similar deal. Bought it. The owners needed to get out, but their team was great. So there's a lot of opportunities out there, but making sure you say no to the wrong
Yeah.
deals and say yes to the right deals, because
Yeah.
you can't take a bad deal and make it good. It's just you're probably not going to be able to pull that one out of the ditch.
Yeah, I think you said it best. Is everything sort of lined up to it just completely made sense. I had a conversation with someone not too long ago about their landscape business, and they rolled pool install business into their landscape business, but they worked together on dozens and dozens of projects consistently with their team where the owners knew each other. Their systems were similar. They were on opposite sides of the town, so they kind of controlled the market. He said they had to sort of change a few things here and there what you can and can't do on the job site, like certain tactical things. But in
Hmm.
general, he said, 70% just sort of made sense. And that's kind of what you're saying too. Don't force it because someone has come to you or you're like, I gotta make this move and make it fit because now I want plant healthcare in my business. I think you got to stop and sort of evaluate how that is good for your business. And that's also just like culture and people and ops and software and those types of things. So that makes it a smooth transition.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. I think so much of it comes back to the people, right? I mean, all of those other things can be worked through. They create more challenges if they're not aligned very well. And if you aren't, if you wouldn't go out and hire that person, you probably don't want to be merging with that person or partnering with that person, right?
Right. Makes sense. Makes sense. We work together at a peer group, which is great. I've gotten to know you over the past few years a lot more depth, but I believe you guys have a really good culture of reading books and learning what accountability is in each role and how disciplined each of the roles are in their company and what matters. You guys very keen on KPIs that you measure things so that you know if that person or that role is winning, how we always say. You
Yep.
do things like scavenger hunts on the first week that we've talked
Mhm.
about. There's a lot of good things like give me a couple of those really cool things that say that sets us apart than any other pest control.
We run around, meet, and visit with, any business owner we can and have in the past. And, so all of these ideas that we do, this is just a matter of gathering the good stuff and bringing it into your organization. So all of it is so doable. I do love our hiring process and making sure that we're hiring the right person, and that interviewing process and onboarding process. And when we do get them to the point where we're making them an offer, we're going to bring them in on a Tuesday when we've already dealt with our Monday, and we're going to bring them in at 9 o'clock in the morning. They walk into the building and we're all waiting for them. We got the noisemakers and, our pom poms and all that stuff. And we're just like
Yeah.
clapping and celebrating when they walk into the building, right? This is the greatest decision you've ever made in your life. And if it's a technician hire, then Sean's running off with him and sitting down with him for a little bit. If it's a customer service, then Crystal's going to grab them. But what we're ultimately going to do that morning is they're going to do a scavenger hunt. And that's how they're going to learn about SafeHaven. They're going to run around and they're going to go from one end of the building to the other end of the building to figure out their code to get into the building, how to get into the gate. They sit down with every customer service rep and talk to them and what are their likes. And in that process of kind of the small interview, they find out like what their likes is, where do they like to eat, what are their favorite drinks, what are the candy that do they like.
Yeah.
Like we're starting to figure out, build that profile of them so that we know how to love on them along the way. And then as the scavenger hunt gets to the end, they'll go out to the warehouse and they'll be looking for something. And then they have to pick out a Nerf gun and they're like, what the heck is this? And they walk back into the office and then we blast them with Nerf.
Oh yeah. Yep.
And then from there, we sit them down and I talk to them about the history of the company, where it all, got started and the why behind it all, where we came from and how we got here. And then we take them to lunch, which is one of the places that they told us that they like to go to. And then we go and do something fun. Top Golf, K1 go-karts. We've gone to the Presidential Library. We've gone to the Art Museum. We'll just go do something that's fun and spend the day with them, getting to know them. Because once me and Sean and Crystal get to know them a little bit as far as our leadership team, then tomorrow they're going to be working, right? And we won't have an opportunity to really get to know them, but we've had that chance. They know us. We know a little bit about their family. There's a little bit of rapport that's been built, and we want them to have the best first day of their life.
Yeah, that's great. So you don't put them in a truck and say, go get them, buddy.
Right. I think it is one of the things that separates us. One of the things that we do when they walk in the building, we celebrate them. We hand them a kind of a gift pack. And one of those things is we have 2 books that they read, Who Moved My Cheese and then Fish. And both of those are just real easy reads. They're fun. And everybody does book reports. And so that's another thing that SafeHaven does. It's very unique. They'll read the book and then they get up in front of the team. We have Wednesday morning all hands on deck meetings, and they have an opportunity. In fact, tomorrow morning, I think we got 3 book reports that are going to be given by team members. And, the idea, like, Who Moved My Cheese? Hopefully many of the listeners have read Who Moved My Cheese. It's just such a simple book. It was written many years ago. And it's the concept is that, what, at some point, all the great things or some of the things that are working in your life are going to change, and you need to adjust and shift and be able to go find your new cheese, right? And we tell them, listen, everybody knows what this book is. Tell us what it meant to you in your life. And it's amazing what happens if they start telling us about personal situations. I want to share one interesting story. We had a gentleman that worked for us. He was from Guatemala. And, obviously English was not his first language, but he was a technician of ours and just a great dude. And he got up and he gave the book report. And when he lived in Guatemala, he was in the tire business and he sold used tires. And at some point, the Chinese tires started coming in, and where new tires were being sold for less than his used tires, right? So he said, they moved my cheese. It was just so funny because he's like, his whole market fell apart. As soon as the those shipment of new tires came in and undercut his used tires, he's like, they moved my cheese. And it was just like, he got it, right? It's just
Yeah,
like,
it clicked.
it just did. It just clicked. And everybody's seeing him and what he went through and him sharing that real raw story about him. It's just
Yeah.
like, man, it just makes a connection. It's that connective tissue that an organization really just makes a good organization.
Yeah, I completely agree. And, people have heard me say this, and I will say it again until I'm blue in the face. But people are your number one asset. You know how scary it is to come into that? It's like, your son walking into a brand new school for the first day.
Mhm.
Wow. It's like if you put yourself in those shoes, it's intimidating. It's hard. Like something as simple as the gate codes to get into the property, to get into the stores, to get in the office, to get to the front gate, like the alarm on and off, like just the bare basics of knowing what to do in those situations. And I love it that you said the first day is just a fun day. Get to
Mm.
know them, understand where they come from, family, all those things, so that you can take those small nuggets and learn about that person on day one instead of figuring it out 6 months down the road. And it gives a whole different perspective on team members, right? Love it.
Our purpose at Safe Haven is to make a positive impact on the team member and their families by serving and supporting our clients where they work, learn, and live. We're going to make a positive impact in your life, and we want to do that by developing you, right? I think some of the best education comes from just the books and the discussions that we have around those books. I mean, the investment in a book is
Yeah.
so low. I cannot encourage people enough to do that. You don't have to roll out this whole company wide. That might be a little challenging for some
Much.
operations,
Yeah.
but just sitting down with your leadership team and reading Winning with Accountability or Crucial Conversations or Multipliers or one of the many books that we read in peer groups, and just read it, 3, 4, 5 chapters at a time and sit down and discuss those chapters. It's amazing the growth that comes from that.
I'm a fan of slowing down. Everyone gets in such a rush of putting out fires. And seriously, if you can slow down for whatever, 1 hour a week or a couple hours a month and sit down and discuss a book. Now that means Michael Bosco, the president, has to read it, right? Not just assign it to your team to go read. Like you have
Mm.
to take the time to understand it, but break it up in small bite-sized chunks. Let's talk about how that applies to our business, our service industry, and go from there and learn those experiences. At the end of the day, they're going to learn a ton of knowledge and they'll develop better as a core team. Love it. Let's shift gears because I want to talk about something. You've been involved in ACE peer groups for a couple of years now, at least, and you've seen a lot. You and I are a facilitator for one group and have been for a while. I love our peer group program, but I want to get your perspective a little bit on what it means when, someone's sort of thinking about the peer group, right? They're not sure. They've heard other groups or they've heard stories. What's your take on that?
I would go back to when I went with you and Chris to Muncie, Indiana.
Mr. Josh Perkins, we got to give him a shout out. He was a great host. Yes, take us back to Muncie.
So that second day where we do the site visit and we interview their team and we come back and we do that critique and that breakdown and the start stop keep. I left that day just thinking, holy crap, that was the most powerful 8 hours of business I have ever experienced. And I still, to this day, every time we do a site visit and every time we do a critique, it
Yeah.
just gives me goosebumps because the amount of knowledge that's going to be shared in that day is astonishing. The knowledge sharing that came from it was just
Yeah.
so amazing to watch, having that real tight peer group experience like that and that critique and having basically a board of directors that comes in and that just shares with you all the things that maybe you need to adjust and the things that you probably need to stop doing is you just got to experience it. I love doing it every single time. It drives me, keeps me passionate about it.
One of the things that I like about the peer group program is accountability. There's no one above an owner going, this is what needs to be done, right?
Mm-mm.
And that's one of the hardest things. You're trying to hold your team accountable, but then there's no one at the top above you doing that. That's where the power of the ACE groups comes in, is because it's not just us, it's the power of that room. You hold each other accountable. You're like, Michael, you said this was going to happen.
Yeah,
We're now 4 months down the road and it's not happening. Like, what is holding you back? And that's one of my, favorite things about it, because there's no one else above you.
that's right.
What's one for you?
That's such a good one, because you're right. It doesn't matter what level you are. If you're an Olympic level athlete, you have a coach. You have people that are
Yeah.
helping you and holding you accountable. And I love that too. I think that ability to go and share, you cannot vent to your team. It really brings the team down. But being able to
Yeah.
go to a peer group and get re-energized and vent and talk about those struggles. So by being part of a group that understands your challenges, they can hold you accountable when need to, but they can just listen to you and let you vent is huge. You got to draw that energy from somewhere,
Yeah.
because you can't be in business without dealing with issues. People are always going to be your greatest asset. They're your greatest opportunities and the greatest source of frustration.
We didn't think we signed up for managing people, but we ultimately did at the end of the day. Unless you're that one sole person to do all the work by yourself, which there's not many out there, you have to learn the ability to manage a team. And all owners are going through that.
I think at the end of the day, being real and raw and honest and transparent and consistent, you know, humble in your way that you work with people is the most important. The whole soft skills, right? Of just giving people grace and room to grow, coming alongside them, listening to them, celebrating their failures with them. Those are all the components of becoming that leader. Somebody early in my career telling me about one of the struggles why a lot of small business owners never grow. And his illustration still sticks with me today. He's like, it's like climbing a ladder. You have to let go of rung of the ladder and grab the next one to climb. And if you don't let go of that thing, you're never going to grow. And that's one of the biggest struggles with owners and managers and leaders is they tend to be very competitive, right? To be controlling a lot of times, or they want to have excellence at all times. And so handing that responsibility off to others and having faith that it's going to get done is tough. If you can do that gracefully in a loving way, supportive way, then you're like 75% of the way there, and then if you work in some ways to make accountability positive, just like you were talking about earlier, if you can figure out how to make accountability not a negative word, but a positive word, then that changes the dynamic. I'll tell you that at the end of the day, it's always people, people, people.
It's been a pleasure having you. I do want to say, though, we have the ACE Discovery that's coming up in that first full week of November. It's on the front end of the week, followed by ACE Summit. If you're still thinking about joining ACE peer groups, this is the place to be. We'll be in Banff, Canada. It's going to be gorgeous. It's probably like one of the best places to be. Seats are filling up. It's getting close. Michael will be there. I will be there. Be sure to sign up for that. You can sign up on the McFarland Stanford website and click register and go from there. It's been a pleasure, Michael.
And absolute blast, Tommy. I always enjoy working with you. Can't wait to get up to Canada. We got a lot of great programming, and golly, it's just going to be gorgeous up there.
It's awesome. Well, it's been a pleasure, and we'll see you soon, buddy.
Ready to take the next step? Download our free profitability scorecard to quickly create your own baseline financial assessment and uncover the fastest ways to improve your business. Just go to mcfarlandstanford.com/scorecard to get yours today. To learn more about McFarland Stanford, our best-in-class peer groups, and other services, go to our website at mcfarlandstanford.com, and don't forget to follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. See you next time on The Roots of Success.